The Adventures of Tintin, King Ottokar's Sceptre. So this is continuing through my journey through these Adventures of Tintin books. This is book number 8, technically, but book number 7 in terms of this series, because the second book, Tintin in the Congo, is no longer published in English. This book, like the rest of the Tintin books, follows a formula. There's a mystery that's set up at the beginning, and then there's just a lot of cat and mouse for the next 50 or so pages, and then everyone is finally caught at the end. So it's got some charms to it, but it shares the same faults as a lot of the other Tintin books. Namely, because this was serialized in newspapers originally, it's not so much rising action building to our climax as just a series of get caught, escaped, get caught, escape. And it, like the previous books, over relies a lot on coincidence or just random happenstance. So, for example, here Tintin is caught. He's being transferred to the state prison. So he gets caught here trying to warn the king. He's in prison. He's getting transferred. And then somebody randomly steps out into the street, and the prison van has to swerve and crash, and Tintin is able to escape. So that type of just random coincidence permeates these books. It acts both as a way to get Tintin out of difficulties. Sometimes it acts as a way to get Tintin into difficulties. Here's another example. So, because of the plot of this book, there's a scepter, and the scepter needs to stay with the king. It doesn't want to cross. You don't want the scepter to get into the neighboring country. Here, somebody is trying to get the scepter into the neighboring country, and Tintin tackles him just in time. Another yard, and he'd have been over. So it was really close. But then, almost as soon as he gets the scepter, he's like, "Oh, what's the matter with me? Oh, I know. I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. If only I had some food." Now, this has never come up in the Tintin books before, where he suddenly can't move because he hasn't eaten. I guess fair enough. People need to eat, but when it just randomly comes in the story, it's another just contrivance or coincidence. And so there's a house over there, but it's across the frontier. Can't be helped. I'm too hungry. So after all that work to save the scepter from going across the border, he all of a sudden realizes that he can't walk another step because he's too hungry. So now he has to go across the border to get the food. And it turns out there's a frontier post. But he grabs the food, and then this is one of my favorite panels. He's eating as he's running up the hill where they're shooting at him. All right. A little bit of humor mixed in here. Sorry, not a little bit. These whole things are silly and deliberately so, but at the same time, I know they're made for kids, but I can't help myself. The fact that there's not really a lot of logic in these plots. Things just seem to happen by coincidence, either to get Tintin into conflict or get Tintin out of conflict. Limits how much I can be invested in these books. And maybe at this point in the series, fatigue is beginning to set in. Maybe I'm just beginning to get sick of it. But yeah, those are the flaws. Now, to talk about the things that are good about this, uh, it sets up a mystery at the beginning. I mentioned that all of the Tintin stories follow a formula, but actually, of the ones I've read so far, they don't all set up a nice mystery at the beginning. Only a couple of them have so far, but this is one of them. We get a few mysterious things going on. There's a professor who's extremely forgetful. Doesn't seem to know what his briefcase is. He's being watched by some mysterious people. Then somebody wants to come in and warn Tintin, but then just passes out of the doorway or is loses his memory. And then the professor himself is screaming on the phone. Tintin runs to help him. And then the professor says, me shouting for help? I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. But it's extraordinary. I can't have been dreaming. I quite definitely heard shouts for help. So we've got that mystery set up. And then it's all just cat and mouse. Chasing and being chased. But then it does come together more or less at the end. Explains that the professor was twins. I know him. He's the man who collapsed in my room. So, okay, we got that loosened, wrapped up. Although I don't think we ever explained what was going on with the professor leaving his briefcases in places. I guess he was just absent-minded, huh? Okay, never mind about that part. According to Wikipedia, this story, which was originally serialized in 1938 and 1939, was about Germany's forced annexation of Austria, or inspired by it, at any rate. So the plot of this is that there's a scheme to have the neighboring country. There's a planned coup. They want to steal the scepter, and if the king doesn't have the scepter, he doesn't have any right to rule. You have to have the scepter, or you can't be the king. Steal the scepter, and then invite in the neighboring country of Bolduria to come in and occupy it. Bolduria has a history of occupying this country. They're fictional names. This is one of those made-up European countries like Ruritania or something like that. The Wikipedia article was interesting because it went into what, in my opinion, was way too much detail about all the speculation about where the details of these fictional countries come from. Even referenced opinions of Tintin scholars. Go ahead and check out the Wikipedia article yourself if you want to see how much in depth they go into this. It always amazes me how devoted the fan base of Tintin is. And I don't know that's a historical legacy. I don't know if that's like something that baby boomers were more obsessed with, and is I mean, I don't know how many young people in their 20s now are Tintin scholars studying the history of Tintin. Uh, I mean, granted, I'm sure it's more popular in Belgium and France as well, but it's an okay comic. It's obviously for kids. It doesn't really, I try and be lenient when I'm judging this. I don't try and hold it to adult standards. I judge it by the same standards as Little Orphan Annie or Carl Barks or Dick Tracy, other kids comics from the 1930s and 40s. But yeah, all the detail they go into analyzing stuff. But yeah, anyways, this plan to force annex another country was based on what was happening in the world then. Germany annexing Austria by force apparently was a big one, but there were other things. Italy annexing Albania and others. Just the forced annexations that was going on in the world at the time. Um, oh, this is another funny little part. Sorry. So the bad guys are trying to catch Tintin. They know he's they think he's in the peasant's cart because that was going to be the only way out. But little do they know that Tintin got in a hired car. So while they're trying to interrogate the peasant, Tintin just drives past in a car. So then they find out he's in a car and they call ahead and arrange to stop the car. Meanwhile, Tintin's in the car with an opera singer. And she says, "Yes, I'm singing tonight at the Winter Garden in Clos. Would you like to hear me now?" "I'd love to." And it turns out she's just a really terrible singer, or at least Tintin doesn't like it. And then, well, how did you like that? Very much indeed. In that case, just to please you, I'll sing something else. And then the next panel, the guards are stopping the car to search for Tintin. And they said, "Where is the boy who is traveling with you?" "He got out earlier on. He'd forgotten something at the coachman's rest, so he went back." So because she offered to sing something else, Tintin said, "Oh, I forgot something. I have to get out here." I would have given any excuse to escape. Now, according to Wikipedia, again, this woman goes on to become a reoccurring character in the Tintin series. Um, so I guess I'll see how she pops up in later adventures. And the Thompson twins are back in this one. Um, I well, at this point they're reoccurring characters, so I probably shouldn't mention it every time they're going to be back. I should probably just expect them to be back. Um, some good comic moments from them. Um, this part at the end was funny. Uh, they panic because the plane's going to land into the water. And then Tintin says, "We aren't falling, we're landing. This is a flying boat, remember?" Then they laugh at themselves. And then they just walk out the door and fall into the water. And then that's the end. So, yeah. Sorry, I just saw something I forgot to comment on. This whole idea about how the king. Sorry, let me back up a second. While Tintin is flying, he reads this brochure about the history of Slydavia. Is that a D there? Slydavia. And then we get like a couple pages of text, which we've not had like this in a Tintin book yet. Um, I was like, oh, geez, do I have to read this? And I went ahead and read through it, and it was a little bit tiresome. But what I did like after I read through it is it gives a somewhat plausible historical explanation for why the king needs the scepter in order to rule. Um, I've encountered these types of stories before. The types of stories where there's some sort of like magic diamond, and whoever possesses the magic diamond is the king of the country. And it always just, I mean, they're always like kid stories because that's kind of kid logic. So whoever possesses the scepter is the rightful ruler of the country. It's very much kid logic. No government actually functions like that. But once you read the whole backstory behind the scepter and how the king said, okay, from this moment forth, cursed be any king who doesn't hold the scepter and stuff like that. There's this whole backstory about why the scepter is so important. It makes it at least somewhat plausible. Okay, yeah. So what else do I have to say? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call this good. Not too much to say on this one.